We go now to a good friend, who does great work with the SEC Network, SEC Network sideline analyst, also the host of the Cube Show in North Alabama. Also, you can find him on Twitter. Drops great stuff there for those of us who like the inside of the game, especially those battles along the offensive line. Cole Cubelic. Cole, how are you today?
First time I've ever been introduced to NSYNC, so I'll take it, I guess.
Hopefully the last. I can't make that promise, though. Cole, I just wanted to get your thoughts. You played all along the offensive line with an offense. Of course, the dominant story in college football right now is Lane Kiffin being fired a week before the national championship game with a new offensive coordinator, Steve Sarkisian, taking over. How much of a difference, if at all, or a distraction for those 11 guys starters on offense will this be?
Well, it impacts different guys more than others. Obviously, it'll have more of an impact on the quarterback than it will any other position. And I think this is actually a bigger deal than people are making it out to be. I'm really surprised, Aaron, at the number of folks who just say that, oh, this is no big deal. It's the same verbiage. It's the same terminology. And I've spoken to John Parker Wilson and Ben Lear that I played quarterback. I had Andre Ware on my show this morning, and none of those guys really agree with that. Most of them say that this will be very different. It will be difficult. It's not a positive, and it's something that Alabama is absolutely going to have to work through. And the bigger surprise is that we all know Nick Saban's somebody who wants to control distractions and doesn't like to allow distractions inside his program. And this is a huge distraction 8 days before the college football playoff championship game. It doesn't mean that Alabama can't have success on offense. And I would never look at this situation and say, well, I think it's going to be an L for Alabama now because they're not going to be able to overcome this. There's too much talent, number one, on that offensive football team. And whether it's Bo Scarbrough, whether it's Jalen Hurts at quarterback, Cam Robinson, Calvin Ridley, O.J. Howard, there's guys that can take over football games. And there's also guys on that staff that can help Steve Sarkisian along the way as to sort of how to manage the game, how to call the game, whether it's Brent Key as the offensive line coach, Billy Napier. You've got other guys behind the scenes like Coach Loxley. They'll be able to formulate a plan, implement it, and install it. Now, in-game is where I think things become a little bit more intriguing. I mean, is Sark going to be upstairs? Is he going to be on the field? How much check with me are they going to do? Who's going to control that? Because if you understand this offense, you see Jalen Hurts quite often this fall looking to the sideline to either get a different play or get a check to Lane Kiffin. That's the voice that he's known this entire season. He's only known one collegiate offensive coordinator. So, Andre Ware said it best on my show today. No two play callers are the same. And not everything is the same with different offensive coordinators. It's impossible for it to be the same. Different is not always good with college football players. Recruiters have had it. We get in a routine, and one small thing can disrupt that. So it's something that Alabama's going to have to overcome. It's not insurmountable. It's not a big enough hurdle that they can't get over it. But I do think it adds to a little bit of the distraction in how complex of a plan it's going to take, an effort it's going to take for them to be successful Monday night.
Nick Saban said it himself. It was a distraction, that Lane Kiffin was a distraction, and almost hinted that Lane was calling plays a few times in the Peach Bowl that the team didn't practice. I'm just wondering, from your perspective, you played offensive line, you played center. If a coach called something in a game that you hadn't practiced, what kind of problems can that present? I mean, we saw Bradley Bozeman take a delay a game penalty that looked like he didn't know what line call to make. What kind of things can pop up if you're calling things in a game that you didn't practice?
Yeah, that's weird. It would definitely make you second guess things, and I think a lot of times this is where fans come in, Aaron, and you'll hear people say, "Well, why didn't they run that play from the second week of the season, or where's that been all year?" You call what you practice. And you practice with what you're going to play with, and you play what you practice. So it's not very difficult. And I think a lot of times people think that you can just go grab anything that you want that you've ever run. There's certain plays that you'll install during the week of preparation, and you'll never hear those plays again. You'll never even consider running those plays again. You won't get in those formations or personnel groupings again. So that's an odd deal. And I think that would and going back and watching the tape and not necessarily the TV copy of it, I saw a lot of offensive linemen sort of looking at each other after the plays, giving you the shrug the shoulders, like hands in the air, like kind of the what the hell or what was that. There was a lot of confusion, and then there was definitely commotion. I haven't complained about Lane's plans this fall. I've backed him in his play calling. I thought he's been brilliant. I see the big picture when it comes to jet sweeps and jet sweep motions and quick throws to the perimeter. I know what he's protecting, and I know what he's building towards. I did feel like that game plan Saturday night was a little busy. It was a little congested. There's a little too much going on before the snap, and I thought he could have dialed things down, dialed the complexity down a little bit, and still found success. But I'll say this, Aaron, whether it was plays that were called they did run a backside zone play that I hadn't seen all season. I don't know if that's one that they hadn't practiced, but it's one that both Scarbrough scored on, and they had success with that play the times that they ran it. So there were things that happened that I haven't seen all season, but that's been normal in that offense this year. But the reality is you have to execute. I don't care if it's Lane Kiffin calling plays that were designed 3 years ago, if it's Steve Sarkisian calling plays. I don't care if Nick Saban takes over play calling. If you don't execute those plays, it's not going to matter. And I'll be honest, the middle of that offensive line got their ass kicked for the majority of the game. They didn't play good football. I mean, the first two series out of the gate, regardless of who the running back was, they couldn't find space running zone plays against six men in the box. And that's unheard of. That's a run look. That's the look that you want to run into. You write it up that way. So no matter what happens with play calling this week against Clemson, they're going to have to execute better up front and really execute better as an offense if they're going to find success.
Talking to Cole Cubelic, SEC Network sideline analyst, also host of the Cube Show from 6 to 10 every Monday through Friday. You kind of hit where I was going next. This Clemson defensive front is really, really good at creating negative plays, and I think they lead the nation in that. I think they have almost for the last 4 years. And Alabama fans remember they created a ton of negative plays in the national championship game last year. How do you view that matchup against the Nick Saban has praised his tackles, but as you mentioned, the guards and even sometimes the center has been Alabama's weak link up front.
Yeah, Bradley Bozeman, I thought, played maybe his worst game in an Alabama uniform, but he's been great most of the year. He's gotten better throughout the course of the season, and I feel like he really had been a strong point of that offensive line at times, not against Washington. But Washington had some big, bulky dudes, and they're physical. And they can cause some problems on the interior, and they did against Alabama. This is not as big, as physical, or I guess as stationary of a defensive line that you're going to see with Clemson. Those Washington kids are really good at holding the point of attack. They almost do it as well as some of the Alabama guys do, as holding the point of attack, shedding a block, and being able to come off and make a play. I'm not sure anybody does it as well as the Alabama defensive line does. This group's more athletic. They move better. They're faster, and they move around a little bit more. They'll attack in different ways. They're a little more aggressive in their style of play. So I think some of the things that Alabama does could be a big benefit, but you look at some of the perimeter runs. Clemson made a few plays on perimeter runs by attacking the defensive ends north and south. They're athletic enough to do it, to come from the front side and be able to make those plays. So Alabama, they run some of those plays, and those are the ones that might not be successful. It's a group that can give this offensive line problems. It's not a group that I think really outside of Dexter Lawrence can consistently physically overmatch Alabama offensive linemen. Christian Wilkins has a chance to, but he's not as physically disruptive as the Dexter Lawrence is. The rest of them are just good players. I think they have two really good players. Pagano's he's kind of a tough, scrappy fighter on the interior of that D-line. And now, this redshirt freshman 99 on the edge, he sort of blows up against Ohio State. I haven't seen him do what he did in that game all season. He might give you a little bit more of an edge threat. But they will be able to cause problems. But I think when you talk about going right at them, you might be able to have a little bit more success against this group than you did Washington a week ago.
Wrapping up here with Cole Cubelic of the SEC Network, sideline analyst, also the host of his own show up in North Alabama. I know you got to get going. I wanted to just ask you about Bo Scarbrough, what you saw from him. I covered him in high school. I've covered him every step away along the way. Best I've ever seen him look. The fastest I've ever seen him hit holes. the most aggressive I've ever seen him run. Just wondered from your perspective as an offensive lineman what you saw from him on Saturday.
Yeah, I think healthy first and foremost. And kind of like what you mentioned, Aaron, just that maybe looked more explosive than I've ever seen him. And it's weird. We haven't seen a ton of opportunities to see him. We haven't had a ton of opportunities to get a good look at him at the collegiate level. He sort of won me over in that game. They ran a zone play to the right side of the offensive line, and there was some penetration that came outside the tackle, and he's at full speed, and he hurdles the dude and is able to get to the sideline and cut ahead for a few more yards. And I'm thinking to myself, I went back and rewound it probably 20 times. And I'm just thinking to myself, a guy that big, that strong, going full speed, to be able to hurdle a defender and then get north and south before you get to the sideline and get positive yards, that's pretty special. I don't think Derrick Henry could have done that. I think he's faster, straight line speed than Derrick Henry. And I don't know if he has the vision or if he understands the position as well as Henry did a year ago, but obviously they're similar in stature. When I saw that play, I was like, man, this kid can be a problem. And if he's moving like that, and if he has that kind of a burst and can generate that kind of a speed, he's going to be tough to bring down. So, they had a few new wrinkles in the run game. I expect him to have a few more this week. And if he gets the bulk of the carries, he's somebody who definitely could be a problem. But I would expect Clemson to play 7, 8, 9 in the box at times to try and take him away and put more